It is the Transfer Centre on TalkSport2 with myself, Ade Oladipo. Let's focus now on Everton, who, look, I think Everton had a disappointing season last year. I think we all can admit that. I expected bigger things from Everton. I think it started like a house on fire, then it started to teeter out a little bit. Demarai Gray has sealed a move to Everton now from Bayer Leverkusen for an undisclosed fee. We believe it to be around 1.7 million. He's agreed a 3-year contract will take him up until the end of 2024. Everton have also joined the list of clubs, it looks like, interested in Jesse Lingard. That's what the Sun are reporting anyway. And they're being linked with Dwight McNeil, obviously currently at Burnley. Let's welcome in Paul McAllister from the Toffee's Blues fan channel. Paul, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. Paul, was I fair in my words there at the top about Everton's season last year? It started so well and then it just teetered out. The home form was really bad, wasn't it? A bit shaky.
Yeah, it was a disappointing end to the season. I think we finished 10th in the end, didn't we? And if you'd have offered any support of that in the summer before the season started, no one would have accepted that. We wanted European football. We wanted to qualify or at least get very, very close to it. And in the end, we weren't a million miles away, but the way we dropped off so badly in the final 2 months, it was pretty much relegation form, especially at home. So we're going to have to go again next season, but if we're going to improve on where we finished, then we're going to need a lot of improvements at various places in the team. There's a lot of players who were given a chance last season who didn't take it, and I don't really think are going to take us to where we want to go to. So if we can shift them out, then that would be great. But we can't, the way FFP is at the moment with Everton, we're going to have to shift a lot of players who are on big money before we can even think about bringing new players in.
Yeah, that's going to be the case, isn't it? It's been a lot of investment, I think, from Farhad Mashiri since he took over the club. A lot of players have come in and look, you know about football as much as I do. A lot of players I think have come in overpriced and maybe just haven't lived up to the price tag. But I say that all, Paul. I mean, you look at the squad and you look at the players that are around. I think Ben Godfrey's going to be fantastic for years to come. Can play in so many different positions at the back there. You got the England #1 goalkeeper. You got Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who can get you 20-25 a season. Richarlison's an interesting one. Sometimes he looks like a world beater and a player that's going to go to special heights, and then sometimes he looks like he should be back at Watford. But there's a good nucleus of players in that squad, though. There's a very good spine. Yeah,
there's about 7 or 8 players there who you look at and you think, if they stick around at Everton long term, then Everton could really go places. As you mentioned then, with Richarlison, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Pickford seems to have sorted out his form now. Ben Godfrey's been one of our best buys for the last few years, and there's other players as well, but there's a lot of other players there who are on big money who, as you said, they're not pulling the weight really. They haven't lifted up any trees since we signed them. The likes of Wolby, the likes of Sigurdsson, the likes of Bernard, they've all come on big contracts, and some of them have had good spells here and there, but overall, you can tell by looking at them that they're not going to get Everton into the top 6 and beyond that, and they've had the chance to do it now. A couple of them have been here quite a few seasons, and Everton haven't really improved with them in the team.
It's interesting, the signings that Rafa's made since taking over, very much squad-based players, not players that are going to initially excite you as a fan, that are going to take you to the next level, but maybe players that can come off the bench and do a good job, like Andros Townsend, I think, can always give you good minutes off the bench. Demarai Gray is an interesting one, just because I remember when there was so much hype about Demarai Gray. He got that move to Leicester, that obviously kind of fizzled out, went to Bayer Leverkusen, and for Bayer Leverkusen to sell him, he's only young, 25, for 1.7 million. I mean, that's incredibly low. I mean, you can't buy League One players for that kind of money nowadays. That's a bit of a surprise, that one, Demarai Gray coming in.
Yeah, that's an eyebrow raiser. Why?
We're going to try and get Paul back there. Phone line was cutting out. We are going to try and give him a call to get him back on the phone line. Just kind of went a little bit there. I was just asking about Demarai Gray. And look, obviously there's a talent still there. It just surprised me, him coming in from Bayer Leverkusen. For Bayer Leverkusen to let him go for that kind of money, I mean, it is shocking. They're not a club that are struggling financially, not one of those German clubs that are struggling for money. 1.7 million for a 25-year-old English player being sold to an English club is surprising. Let's welcome in Paul again. Paul, you there?
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Sorry about that. I heard what you said. Bayern Leverkusen basically letting Demarai Gray go so quickly for a very low amount of money. I mean, he's still very young, isn't he? Yeah. We don't know what the reasons are behind that. Maybe there's a bit of homesickness. Yeah. He just doesn't like it out in Germany and he wants to move back to the Premier League. Maybe I don't know what Bayern Leverkusen's financial situation is, or maybe the manager over there has had a look and thinks that he's not going to fit into their system. But I haven't got a problem with the Demarai Gray signing. I think it's an interesting one. It's a bit of a project for the club, isn't it? Because it reminds me a lot of when we signed Stephen Pienaar about a decade and a half ago under David Moyes. He was a player who... Yeah, he was a player who, when he came to Everton, had been kicking around for a little while and had shown flashes of real ability, but had never really seemed to settle anywhere and crack on. And then he came to Everton, and it was the making of him. He was basically one of our best players for about 4 or 5 seasons, every season. Then he got his move to Tottenham, and it didn't work out because Gareth Bale came on the scene, and he was going to get in over Gareth Bale. And then he came back to Everton, and he was our best player again until he ended up retiring because of injuries. So I'm hopeful that the Demarai Gray situation is going to be something similar to that, where we've picked up a player for relatively cheap who's shown a lot of ability and just maybe needs to get the right manager to work with and the right supporters behind him and the right atmosphere around the club. And best case scenario, he kicks on and we can maybe sell him on for big profits because we've signed him for very low. And even if he doesn't pull up any trees, if we can move him on in 2 or 3 years and make money on the deal, then that's a good bit of business.
Yeah, again, Andros Townsend one came as a surprise. I mean, I've worked with Andros Townsend here at TalkSport, and there was a lot of talk about him going to Turkey, and he seemed to think that as well. And then all of a sudden, he's going to Goodison Park. I know Rafa likes people that he can trust and people that are going to give him sort of solid 6 and 7s out of 10 every single week. And I guess that's what Andros does, right? He can give you a 6 or 7, and then sometimes he can be a world beater. I think we all remember that goal he scored for Palace against Man City, 2-3 seasons back. One of the goals of the season, of every season. He can do that as well. So he's solid, he's reliable, he's experienced, he knows the Premier League, and then sometimes he can do something a bit special.
I think bringing Andros in shows that we're definitely going to go for a style change next season. We're going to go with wingers and look to cross the ball into the box for Dominic Calvert-Lewin rather than the build-up play starting behind him. I don't think we're going to see much of a number 10 in Everton's team next season, like we have been doing for the last couple of years. We've been shoehorning players into that position, and we haven't really got a lot of bang for our buck. Yeah, especially since Ross Barkley left. I mean, we brought in Gylfi Sigurdsson, who's been hot and cold, mostly cold, in my opinion. We've had Rodriguez, who's come in and done well, but he's injury prone. That's the whole reason he agreed to come to Everton in the first place, because he just needed none of the big clubs would basically take a chance on him anymore. So I think the fact that we're bringing in the likes of Demarai Gray and we're bringing in Andros Townsend and we're getting linked with other wingers like Dwight McNeil and Leon Bailey, it shows that we're going to go for a bit of an old-fashioned maybe 4-4-2 or a traditional 4-5-1 type approach rather than a 4-3-3 or a 4-3-2-1. We're going to basically be playing a lot more wide players and looking to cross the ball into the box rather than building the play up behind the striker and looking for him to hold it up.
Yeah, Dwight McNeil's that marquee signing probably this season, isn't it? Because I think a lot of Everton fans, and rightly so, I understand, have been, okay, look, we get the Andros Townsend one, we understand the Begovic, Demarai Gray, they're all good players, all squad players, but in terms of someone that can come in and, like you said at the start, take you from sort of that 10th position to a top 8, dare say top 6, and that's where Everton should be. Everton should be a top 6 club. Dwight McNeil's the kind of player that I think can move the needle a little bit. I think he's ready to go. Here in 25 million, we know Farhad Mashiri's not afraid to spend the money, but you're right, the FFP situation, you are going to need to get players out of the door first, but that's the kind of exciting that surely excites you as an Everton fan.
Yeah, I really like Dwight McNeil. He scored an absolute whale the other goal at Goodison Park last season. And
he did, yeah. I was going to mention it, but I'm happy you did.
Yeah, he's one of those players who, I think he's only 21, but it kind of feels like he's been on the scene for a good while now. Because I remember Joe Hart raving about Dwight McNeil about 2 years ago on Sky Sports when he was doing the punditry, and he'd have only been an 18, 19-year-old kid at that time. And Joe Hart, who knows a great player when he sees he knows a great player when he sees one, considering the players he worked with at Manchester City, he couldn't speak highly enough about him, saying he was Burnley's leading light. And I remember thinking, right, if that boy's getting Joe Hart waxing lyrical about him when he's only 18, 19, then he looks like he's going to have a very big future in the game. And when we were getting linked with him the other day, that was really great to see, because that's the type of player I think Everton should be targeting if we're going to kick on. But like you mentioned, because of the FFP situation, and we've got a lot of players on big contracts, we're going to have to move someone on before we can go out and spend 30, 40 million on a big signing or two. We're going to have to get someone out the door first.
What about the support for Dominic Calvert-Lewin? Again, look, Richarlison, fantastic on his day, isn't he? I mean, he must kind of frustrate you, must pull your hair out, because again, sometimes you see him and you think this is a player that looks like he could play for Real Madrid, and then sometimes you watch him and think, you need a bit more, especially when Dominic Calvert-Lewin isn't playing and he's the focal point up front. You almost feel like you need a bit more from him. I feel like Dominic Calvert-Lewin definitely needs someone to support him when it comes to getting the goals. Josh King came in, a bit of a random sign, I think, for Carlo Ancelotti, obviously not at the club anymore. Do you think you need sort of a backup striker there, just to help Dominic Calvert-Lewin when he does need a rest?
Yeah, 100%. I think everyone needs a backup striker, but it's finding a backup striker who's happy to just be a backup striker, isn't it?
Yeah.
You either have to get someone who's at the tail end of the career, who just kind of wants somewhere to comfortable to spend the last few years, or you need someone who's very young, who's being groomed to hopefully take the mantle on himself in the long term. There's not many kind of mid-20s, late-20s strikers who are happy to come in and just be the impact sub, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got Moise Keane, who's come back. He had a very good season on loan at Paris Saint-Germain, but he's the player who it seems most likely, if we're going to sell a big name, it's going to be him, because Paris Saint-Germain want him back. And he's making it very clear on social media and through his representatives that Paris Saint-Germain's where he wants to be next season, not Everton. But the thing is, if it's going to be Moise Keane, who we don't sell, and we're going to bring him back and give him another try in the Premier League, I'd be really happy with that. He didn't have a great first season, but there were a lot of problems off the pitch for him. Young lad in a new country, and the pandemic first hit, and he had no one in the country to kind of support him and help him on his way. But he seems to have gone to Paris Saint-Germain and grown up a lot more and found his confidence. I think he got 17 goals in 40 games, and a lot of those goals he got were off the bench. He wasn't a starter, obviously, Paris Saint-Germain. So he's clearly got some ability, and I'd be really happy for Moise Keane to come back to Everton and kind of be Dominic Calvert-Lewin's understudy and be looking at himself thinking, right, I want to push Dominic Calvert-Lewin out this team. I want to be number 1 or number 9, literally. I've scored goals in the Champions League. I've played with the likes of Neymar and the likes of
Mbappe
and other world-class players. If they think I'm good enough, and then I can come into Everton and I can unseat Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think that's the attitude the boy should have. But if his mind's just gone elsewhere, then I think we should definitely be looking to get another number 9 as a backup striker, because Josh King was very unlucky, didn't really get the minutes I felt he deserved. But we're going to need somebody there. It's just whoever it is, I hope it's not going to be a player who we're getting mentioned with Solomon Rondon. I mean,
no.
Solomon Rondon's been out in China and hasn't really been on the scene at all. And even when he was in the Premier League, his goal scoring stats didn't set the world alight, did it?
Agreed.
So we're going to need a backup striker, but I'd much rather it be Moise Keane than it be some kind of nomadic striker from around Europe or somewhere else who's kind of been kicking around. I wouldn't want an Andros Townsend like signing for the striker position. I think we need someone who's either going to have a long-term future or someone who is established and has done really well at other clubs and is going to be able to come in and, make an absolute definite impact for them.
No, interesting. And it's very good words as well you mentioned about Moise Keane. I think a lot of people have written him off, but again, I mean, his situation, a young guy coming in to a foreign country by himself, pandemic. I mean, just to come into this country alone is tough. To come in during a pandemic and expect to settle, that's not going to be easy. So I think you're right. He deserves another chance, and there's clearly a good striker in there. We saw that when he was playing with very, very good players at Paris Saint-Germain. Final point, Paul. We've not spoken, obviously, since Rafa was appointed. You couldn't have been happy that Rafa got the job, but he's now there. Is it a case of the Everton fan base just need to get behind him now? I know it's going to be very difficult to do, but he's there. He has signed a long-term deal. It's just a case of just getting behind him and seeing what he can bring to the club. Yeah,
100%. I mean, anyone who's still hung up on his Liverpool connections, then you're just winding yourself up. Do you know what I mean? It was a long time ago. He's always going to be a Liverpool legend, but he's a Liverpool legend because he was great for Liverpool.
Good shout.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's not a Liverpool legend for no reason. He's so highly well thought of because he achieved great things at the club. So why can't he come in and achieve great things here if he's given the proper backing and fans are willing to be patient with him? So yeah, I'm 100% rooting for him. I don't want the club to falter just so fans can turn around and say, "Oh, I told you so. We never should have got Rafa Benitez." There's always going to be a minority of fans who say that, but I think the vast majority are right behind him. And there was some incidents that took place in the few days before he signed his contract, which I think really endeared him to the fans. I think a lot of Evertonians looked at him and thought, "No, that's bang out of order. We don't like that." And it's had the opposite effect. It's rallied fans behind him and thinking if he's still willing to take the job on when he's getting that level of personal abuse, which is completely unwarranted, then clearly he wants the job and for the right reasons. He wants the job because he thinks he can come and do something. He can easily go get a payday somewhere else, which will give him a lot less hassle.
Yeah,
so,
indeed.
Yeah, a lot of the fans have rallied behind Rafa now based on that. And he said the right things in the press conference as well. So forget the Liverpool past connections. Let's just crack on now, and hopefully he can be a very rare animal in the type of animal that's loved by both sets of fans on Merseyside. There's the odd one, like Gary Ablett,
Maybe a bit of Nick Barmby sometimes as well.
Maybe not Nick Barmby, but you've got to be a very, very special type of person to be loved by two rival sector fans, haven't you?
Yeah.
There's been a few sprinkled around Europe, but there's not been many the last few years who's loved by Liverpool and Everton fans. Maybe Rafa Benitez is that special type of person who's going to be that next beloved figure for both sets of fans.
Paul, very, very quickly, Paul, just ask your opinion on this. Richarlison, obviously, look, played for Brazil in the Copa America, and that would have been okay, obviously. It's a massive tournament. He's now playing for the Olympics. Playing for Brazil in the Olympics. What do you make of that? I mean, pre-season starting, Copa America come home, not Copa America go to Olympics, and look, he's going to have a break after that as well. He's not going to go straight back to the Olympics to Everton. What do you make of this?
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I mean, a lot of fans are going to say, right, his bread's buttered here. He's had his chance with Brazil now, or he's had his time with Brazil. He should be getting back here and getting himself ready for the following season. But personally, I don't blame him. I mean, the Olympics is a big thing. Would you pass up the chance to go and compete for an Olympic gold medal if it was put in front of you?
No.
You'd want an Olympic gold medal if you felt it was realistic that you could win one, wouldn't you?
And they care about it so much in South America as well. It's massive for them.
Yeah, if someone turned around to me and said, right, we're going to send you to the Olympics and there's a very good chance you could win and take home a gold medal for yourself, then I wouldn't be passing it up. So
absolutely.
I don't blame Richarlison. He's had a very good day today, hasn't he? He scored a hat-trick inside half an hour. So I'd be absolutely made up for the fella if he goes all the way and Brazil win the Olympic gold and he takes it home for himself and he's got something to remember for the rest of his life. I've got no problem. And you can only hope that the fact that the club have been willing to release him will make him turn around and think, right, this is
I owe them back as well now. Yeah.
This is a place I want to be long term. They don't just view me as an asset, Everton. They view me as someone who's part of the family. They take my specific interests into consideration. They're willing to let me go out and play in the Olympics all summer for a World Cup, for an Olympic gold medal, whereas a certain club like a Real Madrid or I don't know, a Man City, if I went and played there, they'd just turn around and say, no, get back here, do as you're told. We don't care about you and your love for your country. Whereas at Everton, he might look at it and think, no, you know what, this is a good place to be. If I stay at Everton, then they're going to take my interests into consideration and they're not going to just order me around and treat me like an asset.
And to be honest, Paul, it might be like pre-season games as well, isn't it, really? It's almost like it's not like he's not going to be fit. This is almost pre-season games. What's the difference?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. As long as he doesn't get injured out there, then I've got no problem with him going out, and especially after the disappointment of missing out on the Copa America. The South Americans love representing the country, and as I touched on before, if I got the chance to go and compete for a gold medal, then I wouldn't be passing it up. So I don't blame the kid for being very, very passionate about it, and I think it could be a very wise decision on the club's part to let him go, because that could help make him realise just how fondly he's thought of at Everton, the fact that we're willing to make this exception for him.
Indeed. Paul, honestly, my man, thank you so much for coming on. Great to speak to you. Paul McAllister from the Toffee's Blues fan channel there. Great to speak to him. And I fully understand what he said about Richarlison as well. I think if Richarlison won the Copa America, he wouldn't be at the Olympics. But because he didn't, he's almost trying to make it up for it by going to the Olympics.